introducing the speaker for today. His name is Adebola Ajose. He's a seasoned creative designer. He has over 20 years of experience working on brands like Access Bank, Pepsi Nigeria, Biggie, Quick Coca, and Star and Lajabie. So let's all just give him a warm welcome in the chat box. Use an emoji, anyhow, just welcome him to this place. Let's welcome our facilitator. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can see the energy. Thanks, 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 thanks. Wow, I can see the energy. Okay, so Adebola will be taking us today on the fundamentals of creative design, and you don't want to miss it. If there was someone that registered with you, you could just give them a call and tell them to join in the class because we are about to take off. So I'll be handing over to Adebola right now. The next voice you'll be hearing will be his. Welcome again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Miss Facilitator. I didn't catch your name, but thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'm all really honored to be with you all. Uh, just signify if you can hear me, please. Just wave if you can hear me. You know, fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let me share my screen. So can you all see my screen? Just let me know if you can see my screen. Fantastic. Oh, great. Great, great, great. So first I know the facilitator has introduced me, so let me just take it over again. My name is Adebola Ajose, not Ajose, and not Ajose. It's Ajose. Ajose. I'm from Lagos. I've been around for a little bit. I have 20 years of experience between traditional and digital design. Um, I'm currently the creative director of Digital Nigeria and also the founder of PGT6. Uh, my creative journey has been good, um, ups and downs, difficulties, challenges, but so far so good. I've been able to say scale through up to this moment. I started my journey pretty very young, and that's the first thing I would like to share with you guys. I started quite a little bit. If I tell you, I don't want you guys to use this to just calculate my age, but I started at a very, very young age. I started in my teens, and I started from a very, very small shop. I don't know if anybody knows Shomolu or the Shomolu designers and then mission designers. So I actually started from there, and then I began to do a little bit of scaling from one place to the other. I began my journey as an advertiser, as a creative person in an advertising agency in 2000 and I think 2004 to 2005. I can't really remember. And I've worked with quite a number of agencies, startups, world, um, international agencies. I've worked with global brands and all of those. And so let's dive into it. Before I go further into this, please, I know this is well coordinated, and I know everybody is also in as much as we have some beginners here who know little or none about design. I know we also have some people who has knowledge about designing and word everywhere, please feel free to stop me at any given time, and then I would like to to explain further if anything is not really, if you're not really getting what I'm saying and what I'm, or what even what I'm talking about. Please feel free to just stop me, and then let's make it very, very interactive. Um, I would like it. I wouldn't want a boring class, please. Right. So, I think next, fundamental of design is um, it's everyday visual design. Every single piece you see on the street, every form of architecture, every form of element, and form of composition you find on the street is basically part of design in for us in this world. Every single element is part of design, and it actually starts from the likes of there's some little fine arts into say the modern designs that we have at the moment in terms of say web designing, 3D animation, um, 3D modeling, artificial intelligence, and what have you, play more and more colors, fonts, typographies, patterns, you know, quite a number of them, right? But every fundam, every design start from a very, very lower stage that we don't need see as form of say form of art or form of design. I would quickly show some picture, and I want you guys to let me know if you really, really resonate with some of this picture. Um, does anybody resonate with any of these tribal marks? I need your energy, please. Let me know if you've seen this before. Yeah, fantastic, 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 fantastic. So art starts from these days, these days of ancient, where our forefathers, put some little bit of mark on every or every of their kids or any of their family, just to indicate um, the origin of where they actually came from. You know, this is a form of recognition. So when you see somebody from the northern part of Nigeria or northern part of Africa or anywhere in the world, you could easily recognize that, this is where this person comes from. And this is a form of identification for each and every, say, ethnic society, and it began to move into the likes of say art, sculpting, painting. When Leonardo da Vinci paints, when he paints the Last Supper, he wasn't painting based on the fact that he knows what he's going to turn into at that then. And when Mona Lisa was painted, nobody knew it was going to be a world class piece as when it was painted. These are this imagination or imaginary kind of um, art that we came about for colors and patterns, elements that actually even the brush strokes that goes into art, everything comes together to becomes more like a form of say design that we then know today as modern design. I spoke about the sculpting, the bronze, the clay, the wooden sculpture, the paintings, some of it, even some of these art, the Western people actually took them from us because they know the value that and the weight that most of these arts actually embodied. And you know, this gives us the idea of where our origin began from as a designer, as a creative person, you know. And from the very beginning of my topic, I will be talking about few things. I'll be talking about the line and shapes of arts. I'll be talking about the typography. I'll be talking about colors. I'll be talking about images. I'll be talking about balances. When I mean balance, I'm talking about the how we break down our design what we mean by negative space, white spaces, hierarchies in terms of design, um, how we align our designs. So most designers just design. When I remember when I was working, when I started being a creative person in Shumulu, um, um, all what we just do there back then is just to put things together. We just put colors, put 20 elements without even knowing what the trend of designs is, without even knowing what um, the design embodies itself. We just say a client comes to you and just say, I want a call card. In your mind, before you design a call card for somebody, maybe the person doesn't have a logo. What you just do, you just quickly create small logo and then put some things together and just give it to the person. And it's already a call card. Before you know, it's already as printed, and then you don't even know how to even track all of these things, and it becomes a design already. It becomes a piece of art already. You know. But I'll be taking us through this journey step by step to tell us what um what brings together most designs, coming from lines, shapes, coming from typography, coming from colors that you should use that resonate with each other, and all of those images that you use in terms of when it gets to where you're planning a campaign, where you are planning a say you've been charged to design for say some corporate entities and what have you. So I will start with shapes, right? Shapes and lines. So let me start with lines. I'll say lines it connects is actually that line, that connecting factor between one or 2 points. It could be start from anywhere. It could be an infinity line. It could connect from one edge to the other. It could be, say, a form of pattern. It could be, you could get a whole lot from it. It could be a form of illustration, right? Lines are very, very powerful. If you're a designer and you don't know how to connect your dots, how to plot your lines, then there's a problem somewhere, because that means you miss some one of the major basic fundamental aspect of designing. As a designer, you've missed that point, because lines helps you know how to draw your margin, how to draw some patterns, even how to create your logo, right? Um, I remember when we I was going to create a logo for a client like that, and the client was like, "It's not to just put some colors together." And I said, "No, every logo has its own mathematical aspect. It has its own geometrical aspect. You need to plot your graph properly, and these are what lines do for them. Would definitely do for you if you miss that major aspect of say creativity. You've missed a whole lot in terms of design, and it's something that we really need to just be very, very much aware of. The next one will be shapes. Shapes comes in so many, comes in two ways. Comes in the geometrical way and it comes in the organic way. Now, the samples I'm showing here tells you what geometrical ways. The star, the oval shape, the circle, the perfect square shape, the rectangular. These are shapes that gives you the geometrical aspect of this. If you learn how to put all of this together, before you know it, how you would come about creating patterns and putting all of this together would be a lot more easier for you. It becomes you start creating some contemporary art that that you won't believe that you can actually come about it. Shapes and lines are very, very important in terms of creativity, in terms of design, in terms of modern art that we generally know today. Even if we don't know about those history of art, those history of colors, if we know about plotting our lines and then cutting our shapes properly. It helps in a lot of places. Helps in so many ways. People are familiar with CorelDRAW, which is one of the um, say one of the best design tool in the 90s stroke early 2000, early millennia. Those are the kind of tools that you cannot do anything without even say cropping your images on corridor. Before you do anything, you need to draw a rectangle because your artboard is not your major artboard. You won't design in artboard. You need to the first thing you first need to do is to first create a rectangle shape. Then you can now make that rectangle shape more like your artboard and where you're supposed to start putting your elements, putting your stuffs and all of those. I would show us what the power of shape is. Now look at this pattern. Every piece and bit of this pattern lies between lines and shapes. You can see the the can you still hear me? Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Okay,
can.
fantastic.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Sorry, I just a call tried to come in and then so every part of this pattern here goes between lines and shape. You can see the faces, the and the head, the caricatures, everything goes into each other and gives you a perfect art. Would you have seen this and you would have thought that lines and shapes would give you this in gives you um this fantastic contemporary art. And you can imagine guys, the guys who study fine art in our institution, the university, that use their brushes to come up with most of these things. Now you can use the system to build these things. But when you see these guys doing their lines, their strokes, and all this, you'll be wondering that how did you guys come about these things? No, it's not from the blues. They are not aliens, right? It's just learning the fundamental part of of art, learning your lines and learning your shape. I will show us some other patterns. Look at these leaves. Look at this the glory of this abstract art. The way they live, the elements of these plants goes into each other, using colors to separate them. Everything is built on art. It's just on lines and shapes in nature, you know. And this will help us guide us into how we're supposed to actually put together majorly patterns when we're creating bindings, put together when we are creating posters, guide us when we are creating, say, 3D animation, 2D animation, when we're creating websites, because these are the major areas that we need to first look at for before we start focusing into creating a niche market, a niche design aspect for ourselves. Same as this. Um, so we go into typography. The first part of typography, the first learning about typography. People often the Gen Zs of nowadays doesn't even know. Even some millennials don't know that typography starts from letterpress. There's something called letterpress, whereby you put together and then you have to put your letters one after the other. It has component of say fonts, different kind of font, serif, sans serifs. I will get there. I will tell us what serifs and sans serifs are. But what this helps us to do is that if you look at this Bembari at the top, you would think that this thing was created with maybe one very avant-garde system or one mad as designer had done this. No, this is done based on a letterpress. No, he has a machine that helps bring this to life when computers were really expensive. Not quite a lot of people can actually afford to buy a computer. And typography tells us that it is style or appearance of text It refers to an art of working with text. Something gives you probably do some time, some project work, some school work. I remember when I was in Yaba Tech when I was in school. You can't do anything with computer. You have to do everything. Everything is manual. You paint every posters, you paint every artwork with your brush and this letter press. They won't even allow you because they wanted us to actually realize the fact that so for us to appreciate the fact that creativity doesn't just come to play. There's an history to every element, every component of creativity, and if every component of design, every component of art, every component of sculpture, every component of painting, every component of mixed media, you know, this would actually open your mind. By the time you're even doing all of this or putting this together on computer or putting this together with one particular software, you won't go out of these principles because these are the principles that would guide and shaping your mindset when you create stuffs. So we have two types of typefaces. We have serif, we have sans serif. Every single person who had actually read a book, right, has had come across one typography or the other. We might not just know. Something sometimes things appeals to us in a certain way. And when you see some typography jumping at you would feel that peace, that enjoyment of reading that newsletter, that newspaper, that magazine. You'd be like, oh, this magazine is so awesome. Uh, how did these people come about this? No, the thing is not magic. It doesn't come from the sky. It's somebody who had sat down somewhere who understand what typography is, who had sat down somewhere who had studied typography properly, and had been able to come up with his aesthetical angle of designing, you know. So that is what typography does for us. So I'll really go quickly into what serif and sans serif is. So serifs are that small line letter, small lines attached to every letter. If you see every sans serif, they have this edge of royalty. And when this came about, I think it came from the old Roman Empire. This is the own style of putting together typography and then sending letters across. But if you see some people who write calligraphy, these are all form of typography, right? And the old serif, which is serif, doesn't have too much of families. The families of serif are really really minimal, and they are just classic. They're just there for you to use when for an appropriate when there's an appropriate means of using them. You find most of them in book work, in say you novels, magazines, daily times, newspapers, because these guys are way back and they understand the consequence or the usefulness of serif. And also some of them have gone a little bit more modern now and by adding just a little bit of sans serif into what they've done. Every type, every font has their own history. Like New Times Roman, or Times New Roman, Bodoni, Garamond, Century, Gothic, all of these fonts are fonts that stayed over time. We see them now, but most of these fonts that actually come, or these typefaces had been around in the likes of, let me say, um, 17th, 18th, before the 1919s, and before we have the 2000, the 20s, and they've been around for a lot of time. And the likes of sans serifs, look at the the glory of the serif font. You can see how typography comes about when it comes to serif. You can see the Baskerville, you can see the Times New Roman, you can see the Bodonis. This font with Let's Talk type is written with Bodoni. You can see how great, how contemporary it is. It looks good in the face, but most people that don't know how to, combine most of these fonts, just throw them from one place to the other because we don't know so much about it. It just feels like, it's just typeface and we can just use them anyhow. But there are components and there are ways of coming to use them. As a designer, you need to understand all of these things. You need to understand how all of these things come together. For sans serif are the most simple serif fonts. It's called Simplicity, and it comes from the French language, which is called without. Now, without serif, without the extra line. They are majorly straight fonts with different families. Now, if somebody, I know most of us who had used computer or who had write project in school knows area. Area comes with different family, and if you've come across, say, Times New Roman, you find that it's just two family, which means it's just the light and the bold. For area has area thin, area round, area bold, area black, you know, excuse me, it gives you a whole lot of opportunity to do more. It gives you that liberty to actually enjoy yourself when you are creating. But that doesn't mean that every creative has to do with say sans serif. There are ways and manners that we use all of these things. It's not just I just pick one font I just put together. There are ways and there are techniques to most of these things. Am I still communicating with somebody? Are we here? Am I making sense? Please,
Yes, sir. How
please
you daily limit
stop me
answer?
if you want to. If you have a question for me, please always take me back. I will enjoy answering every question. Please. So the next one would be showing you how these fonts comes about, how to use them. You can see how we break down Futura, showing the years that has been done. Porena is the founder of Futura. This font took its cue from a Vertica. Vertica has been around for a very long time. It was around, the idea of a Vertica came around when during I think the Second World War, the First World War, when the Jews were trying to break away from the the tension of say um, the they are they are superior and they needed to create their own style, their own things. That was where also the font like Swiss came up just to show that this is their own style, their own way of doing things. And since then, there have been quite a number of sans serifs and the likes of Montserrat, the likes of Brutus, the likes of say Beavers. People began to have that liberty to create their own usefulness, their own style of creating, their own style of design. And most brands these days, for them to have this uniqueness and this custom way of doing things. Recently, when Uber rebranded, I was telling some of my guys, I said, Uber actually went as far as creating their own Uber font just to create a little bit of niche and create that marketplace for themselves so they can say, what, we own every aspect of our branding. And that was how most of these sans serifs um, actually came about. So I will take us through some principles of typography and how we're supposed to use it. It's a YouTube video. It's one of my, I took this video from one of my finest mentor, Chris Do. And I want us to just listen to this. It's just about say 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes there about. Just stay with me and then I'll play. And justification. So to the right or to the left side, right? Because people read from the left to the right, right? Justification is very, very important in terms of creation. And second is use of one font, right? When you are creating anything, you try as well as you use a font with family, whereby if you use the bold part of it, you can go 3 steps lower to create a little of contrast between the bold font and the light font. And if you're using the black, try as much as possible to create a little bit of skipping a weight to say, having the bold and use a thin font. Ignore the bold, ignore the light, the normal, and then just use the light. This would give you a little bit of contrast, give you a little bit of say hierarchy. Don't double space your points, right? Make sure that when you are actually doing whatever you want to do, or you're creating your H1 creative or your H1 graphics, you need to be at least make sure that you have your H1s, say 2 times or 3 times bigger than what you're doing, right? This align to axis. If you're going to align to the left hand side or you're trying to call out a particular um, part of your typography, make sure that you have a clear, distinct form of it out coming out of say out of the normal, so that you create that contrast, create that hierarchy. Once that work with each other, let me go back to that part just for you to see the fonts that actually work with that group in rules by grouping. 1 minute, please. Now, you can see he has this Avenue, Avant-Garde, Bell Gothic, Bodoni. These are fonts that has say different families that you can use in between. And when he did this, these are the font that has the best family that people could work with. By now, I think this was done like say 2018. Between 2018 and now, there's quite a number of fonts that actually emerged. New typography actually come in place. New trend of how to use fonts and how to use the typography had actually also come in place. But what this guy had done is that he had given you the typography rules, and this rule is really, really magical because if you actually practice this rule, right, looking at every design that you be doing henceforth becomes more like it will become more like one of the best design that would stay out of time. People will look at a design that will like looking for something, whatever I will say, maybe something is wrong with the design notes. It will always come out cool and then more like say friendly to the face. Say grouping by rules, using rulers, and also creating shape, creating contrast, putting distinctly having your heading, avoid the corners. That's one of the major things in terms of design. Avoid corners. Now, oftentimes when you create typography, when you want to write or you want to type on Microsoft Word automatically gives you a margin to say there's a type area. So what happens when we start designing, when we start creating things, when we start using that our Canva and our text is almost going to your artboard? Is it that you are trying to maximize space, or you don't want it's just like somebody having a plot of land now and you build your house on that one plot of land to the extent of that there's no parking space on that land. That is how design, that is what design does for us. It gives you that style of doing things and keeping in mind that negative space is very, very much important. Mind the gap. Oftentimes, most people in the say in the 90s, people that grew up in the 90s and then maybe early 2000, like the fact that anytime you are typing one letter, or if you are typing one magazine, or you are doing one, say, typing a journal, it has to be a perfect full width. And before you know it, you will start having all this unnecessary spacing in between. I can tell you that, please, it's totally, totally wrong, right? It's absolutely, absolutely wrong. There's no law that says that your typography or your letter or whatever you are typing has to be full width, right? That those are ancient days. Those are days of the old, right? You can also break your design, your letter, your text, your say you design an annual report, you're designing a book work, you can break it down into 2 columns, 3 columns, and then make it look so crisp and nice. Spacing matters in everything that you do in terms of typography. Spacing is one of the biggest way of minding your gaps. You know, if you put adequate space, then you have the best form of typography. Bold, italics just helps you to say call out um, your your design and whatever you're trying to create. So let me go back. I'll take us back a little step just to show us this text. Everything that you've watched shows you about how this typography layout comes about. If you look at this black D dot guy over here where I'm hovering my mouse, you will see how typography is being done as if it's just as if it's just a piece of granite and popcorn. It's easy in the face. It doesn't hurt. You enjoy seeing creativity and design and all this say justification, negative space, having your text bleeding into from one area to the other. These are just say the a fundamental way of coming about your creativity. The fundamental way of coming about your creativity. And let's go to the next one, which is colors. Please, I hope I'm talking to people. Am I still here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dropping.
Yes,
Some
sir.
people are dropping.
Yes,
We are
sir.
with you,
Some
sir.
people are dropping questions on the
We are
comment
with you,
section.
sir.
So maybe like you can check the intervals. Like someone is
Okay,
asking
all
now.
right.
Tochuku is asking what's the name of the font. Like there are some questions on the comment section.
Okay, what name of
Victor, do you want to moderate?
which font are we talking about? Which of the fonts are we talking about?
Um, Tochuku, can you like unmute and clarify what font you are referring to? The individual said the previous said I'm on the road. The previous image. Adebola, can you move a slide forward? Just so we can. Okay, are you
We're
referring to
talking
this,
here.
Tochuku? Yes. Okay, said yes. This image. So
So there are a couple of
I guess
fonts here. Which of them are we talking about?
uh I think I'm not sure. She said yes. This image was in. I think this is a
So we
vertical. If
have
I'm not
we have
mistaken.
Futura, we have a vertical, we have accidents, grotesque, we have Gabriel Grotesque. We have Code Brew Pro, Code Brew Board. We have say Brewwork Studio. We have Layout Grotesque. Which of them are we talking about? We have about four
I think that
fonts, four typefaces
I
here.
think that covers it. That covers it. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not
Divine.
for
You
this
also.
particular image. I'm sorry, I just have to speak. There is an image before this that has a type at the bottom right corner.
Is it this one?
It looks like the other one you showed that has a vertical. The image looks like that.
Is it? Are you talking about this?
Oh, not the image. I'm sorry. It's like I'm slowing the class. Yes, this one, this particular one.
This particular one? Okay. Which
Yes,
of them?
this.
So we have.
Yes, we can. The yes,
So
we
this yes,
can typo.
so the yes we can typo here is combination of calligraphy and a proper font. So the major font, the main font here is Bodoni, but a little bit of say calligraphy had gone into this to bring out this shape.
Yeah. Divine. Your hands are raised. Do you want to ask a question?
I already asked the question in the chat box, but let me just say it again. I was asking for the name of the video we just saw.
So the name of the video, name of the author or the creator of the video is called Chris Do. His company name is called The Future. The Future is TheFutur without a E.
All right, thank you.
If you just type Chris Do on Google, it's going to bring out his personal page and also his YouTube channel where this video is where the video is being referenced.
All right, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. Can you like share the materials after the class so that they have it as well, or maybe any links that might be useful.
Okay, no problem. I will share the material with you, Mr. Victor. So, do we have any other question? Can we move on?
Wally has a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, I want to ask that what's the best app for design? Like, which app is like the best one to use for designing graphics?
So it depends on the style of graphics you like to do, Olawale. I would get there. I would actually break down the type of designs and why how we do how what we need to know for us not to miscommunicate the layers of designing because some at some point in time people miscommunicate being a graphic designer, a graphic artist, in an art director, and say other say line of designing. We often mix all of this up together. I would tell you the perfect app or perfect say platform for the best is for your own line of design or whatever you feel like you want to do. Because design is broad. It's not just one man, one person, plenty capacity. Does that answer your question, Alawali?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question before we move on? Any other question, Mr. Victor? Can we move on?
Yes, please. Let's proceed.
Okay. The absence of none. So let's move on to the next. Okay. So now colors. So color actually originated from the ancient days. So the founder of color, if I'm still on point, is called Sir Isaac Newton, who actually defined the color wheel. But long before then, there had been an history of color from the old Egyptian empire and what color was to them, what color is to them. The theory of color came about the fact that the mixture of dark and light color for us to actually imagine to other form of colors. We might be seeing plenty of color wheels now, but the major foundation of color comes from just three aspect of primary colors, which is the blue, the red, and the yellow. Now, people often think like white is the color. Yes, white is the color, but white and black for a designer, we don't regard or attribute them to be more like a color because they are natural colors. It's something that whenever you jump into whenever you jump into any artboard or whenever you jump into any platform, it's either you have a black template or you have a white template. So it's not regarded the color anymore. It's not becomes a say a theme, so to say. Now, for designers, you need to learn that there's this color code or there's this language of design that you need to learn. And this also embodies into color. Now, for a print designer, you need to understand that your three primary colors are, say, either CMYK or say RGB, or you are using a Pantone color. Now, for Pantone colors, these are colors that actually comes with say a little bit of mathematical theory components of numbers and letters and all of those things that can also be used in other platforms like say website or maybe say product designing, say in 3D component and all of those. But some of those places doesn't use the normal primary colors that we we should know or we know as when we start designing or when we start as a young designer. RGB is blue, red, and green. Everybody knows that, it's blue, red, and green. And your CMYK for print color is called cyan, magenta, and black. So RGB colors are colors that you use during your digital designs and your web designs and say your product designs. For anything that actually that has to do with say print, brand architecture, say logo design, anything that has to do with print design, you cannot use RGB. And the reason being why is because these colors are more like a secondary color to your to your to your CMYK design that only applies to the fact to non-printable materials. We need to understand that part. I've seen most designers on some of the designers of now trying to design for print, and most of the colors they use evokes RGB, and I wonder how they actually came about it. Because if you try to produce with those colors, I'm sorry, I don't know even know what to say. Does anybody know what beans that has corn is in Yoruba? We used to call it ewa lagbado. It's called adalu. You don't want to chop adalu. So color evokes so many passion, right? What red does for me might not do the same thing for Mr. Victor. What yellow would do for me might not do the same thing for the moderator. We see color differently, and that's the reason why when we see blue, there's quite a number of blue, and they actually evoke different emotions and empathy. I've spoken about the mathematical and the physics part of colors, which is the which is the Pantone colors, and which is the fact that most colors, say if you come, if some, you can look at MTN's major color is yellow. Now for print, there's a different color combination for print. For web, there's a different color combination for web. Now it's still the same yellow, but if you try to use the composition for web to print, you might be having, at the end of the day, your color can come out as red, because the printing system will not recognize the fact that you are trying to say that it's the same yellow. What you've told the printing system is that you should figure out what the color is by themselves, because you've not put the proper um, mathematical theory to the color. Am I making sense? So this is just a color wheel at large. You can see how color emerge and all of those. Now, I often see that some people just apply colors without even looking at the fact that, sometimes you need to see what um, color composition, the best color composition that actually helps your creativity comes out good, or that makes it comes out as clean as possible. Let's go to the next. I thought I actually uploaded this, but let me just quickly take us back so you can see what I'm talking about. Now look at the color theory in this composition. You can see how interesting it is to the face, how blue interacts with yellow, and how magenta interacts with orange, and how red actually interacts with magenta and other likes of color. This is just a proper definition of how colors is being put together. You can see the green, the turquoise, and the sea green on yellow. You can see the orange on sea green. Most colors, and the idea of putting colors together. Let me just say this. The idea of putting colors together is to actually look at blue as two major colors that comes about blue. If you bring it back to CMYK, is a composition of cyan and magenta. So if you are doing anything with blue, be sure that you have to run away from adding green to it to start with. If you are doing something with green, your best say next color that would complement it is either yellow or cyan. If you are doing anything with red, the best color that could complement it is either yellow or magenta. That's the best first stage before you start now going out of your way to start applying colors. And I'll also help us, I'll also beg us, and every point of our design, any point of our creativity at the preliminary stage, try as much as possible to also keep your text color as either black or white. I mean your paragraph text, not the bolder font. The bolder font can actually do with any form of say color range within your color space, but your paragraph text, I mean the smaller text, try to as much as possible keep it in between the color that you can really that can actually work with your design. So if you're working with a blue background, just keep your color as white, because black will not show on it. If you are working with a white background or a green background, keep your color as say black, because it's actually going to at least come out crisp and nice on it. Don't use say a primary color on a primary color in terms of text. Don't use a primary color in terms of text on a secondary color. All of these things are what makes your design unique. So you are not designing like the likes of my people, my main people in Shumolu, because I used to be one of them anyways. So let's move on. So images is actually images comprise of say different form of um, personality extension of person or abstract art. Now there are vector images, there are say 3D images. Now we now use quite a number of 3D images now. There are pictures, um, there are say illustrations and what have you. You just need to know where all of this applies and what it does, or the major the kind of project you want to use it for. So you don't use your 3D image where you're supposed to use a picture image, or where you're supposed to use a vector image. You're not looking for a 3D image, right? Though they are all images anyways, but they actually evoke different form of creativity. It's not just, I will show us what they do, how you can differentiate them, and how you can actually use them appropriately in use. Also, we have balance, which is we've spoken about the likes of typography, which is negative space and all of those things. But also in design, there's also balance. So you can look at this small artboard with orange at the top. He has a bigger box and he has 4 cubes beside it. Now, this 4 cube might actually, we can choose to model everything up, which what some people would do. Now, which means what this has told us is that there's a logo area or there's an image area by the side, and we have say the other component, which is maybe text, subtext, maybe an insert of another image in these 4 boxes. Now, the representation, part of the representation of it is where we have the text below. So if you look at text we have below, we have a combination of serif system and then serif typeface and then sans serif typeface. And this is where I was talking about. Is anybody say anything? Do you have any question? Okay, so this is where I'm talking about the fact that there are ways and patterns on how we use our fonts that won't hug the face. Now, looking at this design, if you give this to some clients, they would start querying the fact that why do we have so much white space? Why do we have so much space here? But every space in design, every negative space in design is part of design. Just like my previous instance, that if you have a plot of land and you want to build your house on that plot of land, except if you are very greedy to yourself, you would create your parking space. You will create your mega house. You also create some little space that people can actually at least walk around, and you manage your space to just build your house where it's supposed to be. So see it in that way. The picture area is where your house is. The text is where your parking space is, and the smaller text is where maybe your mega's house is, and then you are creating a space whereby you can still sit down in your garden and have maybe some evening chit chat with the family, or maybe do some create a barbecue area where you can actually relax and all of those things. So these are things. This is what balance in creativity in design does for you. Now, having said all of this, we've not really gone we've not gone into the major aspect of design. What I'm still trying to do is for you is that to understand what design is and how to manage your design when you start doing all of this creativity, right? Because if we jump into using the tools without learning all these fundamental aspects, you find out that you are so engrossed in using the tools, you use the tools first, and you start chasing on how to manage your creativity later. There are fantastic designs that are already created out there that when you look at them, you're like, this person didn't do this thing properly because the person does not understand this fundamental aspect of design, and which is really, really important for every creative person. Now, there's also rules of three in design, which is rules of grid in design. Um, my own perfect, say, best practice is to have, say, a zigzag and the letter F. But for, say, a global standard, it's more of a perfect, say, a rule of grid, which is a rule of three in design. So imagine you have your artboard, say BU8 A4 artboard, or it's an A3 artboard or something. Divide it into three, right? You can have it as your image area should take 75% of your design, and your text area takes 25%, or your text area takes 75% of your design, and your image area takes 25%. That is the ratio to a perfect designing, a perfect creativity. Right. So let's go into type of designing. Right. We have four type of designers, and if you are a designer and you're struggling between these parts, this is where you need to understand your part here. I intentionally did not add product design into this play because that's another conversation for a different topic. You know, that is majorly for people who wants to go into product designing. But I can bet you that if you learn this fundamental aspect of designing properly, and you finally want to say have that conviction in yourself, say that you want to go into product designing, this is the best way to start, because product designing, you cannot do product designing without knowing all of this. You need to know what a brand and architecture designer is. You need to know what a poster and pattern designer is. You need to know what a 3D and 2D character designer entails. You need to know what animation and motion designer entails. Now, I will start with brand architecture. So most of these logos that we see, the likes of say, I'm not talking about all of these are Nigerian logos, because they just give it to one agency like that and just come together with and just put some things together for them and they are good to go, right? So imagine the likes of Tesla, the likes of Toyota, the likes of Apple, the likes of Twitter, Facebook, the likes of WhatsApp, and what have you. All of these logos went through a perfect measurement called golden ratio. Now, golden ratio is an old system of designing, or creating any art piece back in the days. It was found by our best and renowned scientist, designer, and also a sculptor, Da Vinci. This is the same. When he found this, he was about to, I think, he was trying to create a particular piece that had to do with, say, some sort of universe, and he began to study about how the wheels of the universe, how golden ratio, how that circle. If you look at the universe picture from afar, you see this circle thing that actually goes in between. That's how golden ratio comes about, and that's how the history of plotting designs properly comes about. Because you cannot, if you want to create a logo that stays out of time, that's people would see and will resonate with people. That you look at back in the last 10 years or in the next 20 years, and you'll be struggling to say, what can I take out of this logo? What can I remove out of this logo? This is a perfect way to go about it. Logos are meant to be measured properly, and that's why I said it's called brand and architectural design. So a brand and architecture designer are the ones who come up with logo, who come up with say branding designs. You cannot be a poster design and you would have except if you have you've transited into this journey of design um, in stages. As maybe you were form of brand architecture designer before you become a say a poster designer or this normal flyer designer. But what people know most of the time is that once you start designing flyers, once you start designing once you start designing adverts, once you start designing billboard, once you can do small motion design, people often think that you're already a logo designer, which is totally wrong. Being a logo designer, being a brand architecture design, it's a different ball game in itself. It's a proper job. It's a proper job. People create niche for themselves on this, and what they just live on for the rest of their life is just on this. People are turned celebrity designers on just designing logos only. People are charged millions of dollars um, um, in designing logos. People are already billionaires. People are billionaires in designing just logo. One of the recent history, I think proud to, I think immediately after COVID or maybe during COVID was Nike. When Nike was designed, it was just designed. It was one college student that just came up with it. Even the owners of Nike didn't believe in the logo. They were just like, no, okay, that's what we could get as cheap as what we could get. And then it's just this watch. Let's just use it. And over time, Nike had at even at some point that they were trying to rebrand Nike, but the logo was just too simple, was just too good for them to say that, you know what, we had to take something or remove something out of it. Another part about being a great designer or having a great design is if you look at a piece of art and you look at it vividly and you don't see, you can't take out anything away from it anymore. Like you've taken everything out and there's nothing to take out again. That is when you can say, you know what, this design is great. That's when you can have a conviction to say, you know what, you have a perfect design. You know, design is not supposed to be heavily in your face, it's supposed to evoke emotion, not to not to aggravate tension in people's mind. So I won't talk about that. Once you finish designing a logo, the next thing is to design say the branding aspect of the logo. Now let's not let's not mix the things up. Having to design a logo is not branding. Now logo is a different ball game in itself. Branding comprises of logo and every other element. Now your how to use your logo, the colors to use, the environment design, the office branding, the the signage, the merch, are what brings what brings branding together to form a unique branding. Branding is also not advertising or advertisement. Branding is just branding. It's not any form of marketing. Branding is not marketing. Branding itself is just branding. Please do not mix it up. When people, if anybody approaches you, say, you know what, I'm using my brand to market. No. Branding is a culture on its own. If you want to do marketing, then you can put up a campaign and then do a marketing campaign, not to do a marketing campaign about your branding. No, it's actually different, two different ball game, right? So going further is talking about poster and pattern designers. Now, for the question, I think it was Oladele that asked that question. I don't know who's that person. Now, as a designer, if you are a poster designer, or a pattern designer, now there are different tools that you can use in designing your posters. Now, let me bring us back to the logo. For logos, there are different tools that you can use in designing your logo. But what I would recommend to you mostly is use a vector-based tool to design your logo. You can use CorelDRAW, you can use Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, you can use Adobe InDesign, you can use Affinity Designer, um, you can use what again? I think that's all. Those are the um, major vector-based tool, because people who uses Photoshop are not proper brand designer. I can tell you that for free. Are not proper brand designer. Every branding that you've seen over time that has a brand architecture and all of those things are vector-based, and it's been designed with most of the like any of these vector software. For poster design, you can use anything. You can use Photoshop, you can use Illustrator, you can use even any of the vector-based design software. You can use your tab. You can use Canva. Any design tool that can achieve your poster design, it's good to go. But mediums matter. If you are designing for print, I would advise you use a vector-based software, because you can actually control your CMYK colors. You can control your print colors. You can control your color guide, color codes, and all of those things. But if you're designing for web or digital space and all of those things, yeah, you can use any form of design tools. You can use After Effects. You can use Photoshop, because it's going on data anyways. Nobody cares about the color. Nobody cares about if the combination would affect anything, as long as the color is right. Now, as long as you get the color code right on your Pantone, your RGB, your X color. So as long as you get it right, you are good to go. So these are samples of flyers, from pattern designs. You can see this Fanta pattern. It looks good. It looks crisp in the face. It actually goes well with the branding. It's very playful. It's fun. This Black Friday, you can see the pattern behind it. Evokes some certain level of emotion. Even for the Heineken brand, the happy hour, you can see the swoosh, the movement of the entire thing. And again, also poster designs also gives you liberty to add to combine different aspects of design. You can combine your 3D aspect, you can combine vector plus 3D, you can combine image, which is your picture image, you can combine say 3D text, it gives you room, as long as you are still within the fundamental design space. As long as you still have in mind, yeah, you have your negative space, you still have your hierarchy, you have your contrast, every of these are still in place. You can use any form of design to come up with your posters, or any form of technique to come up with your posters, and then your pattern. And that's for poster and pattern designers. Now for 2D and 3D character designer. Now, oftentimes people often match two, say, professional, two type of designing together. Now, 2D and 3D character designers are different from motion and animation designer. I can do 2D, I can do 3D, doesn't mean that I might be able to animate it. Yeah, it's a different ball game in itself. So sometimes 2D and 3D designers in an ideal setting or in an ideal workspace, maybe not in Nigeria, maybe abroad, your job is just to come up with a 2D and 3D character. The person who is going to animate it is different. It's somebody else's job. But we are now in a system whereby everything works into each other. If you're a 2D and a 3D character designer and you don't know how to animate it, then there's a problem. I bet if you are going to get a job in this Lagos or even in this Nigeria, but it's actually different thing. And for this software, you can actually use After Effects for the 2D animation. You can use the likes of your Cinema 4D, Maya, Blender, and a couple of 3D software that actually resonate with you. I know there are a couple of them outside, and there are even ones that are actually AI based recently that you don't need to start from learning from scratch. All you just need to do is just to pay for the platform and then just type in whatever you want to achieve and voila, it comes up. So traditional 2D and 3D character designer, beware, AI is taking over, but I can bet it's not going to take over your job, of course. You can still do better job. So the next one is motion and animation designers. These are people who actually, so you can see the swatch, you can see the movement. So this is what a motion designer, animation designer is. This is what their job entails. And the only way you can achieve this is through After Effects, character animation, Adobe character animation, what again? Say Free School for people who use on the Go tab. It's a mobile application for tablets, and to some extent, I think Photoshop can also do some of this. Yeah, to some extent, Photoshop can achieve some of these animations. So the person that asks for the best design software, it depends on what you want to do. It depends on the type of design you're actually looking forward to do. So, I think that is all I have for you. Do you have any question? I think, yeah. So far.
I thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adiba. I think Faith's hand is up. Faith, you raised your hands. Do you have any question?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the teaching. Please, I want to ask, like, for a beginner, what platforms or materials do you advise for one to use for learning these things that you just thought of this evening? Thank you.
Majorly, what I recommend for beginners is first I wouldn't say you should totally sign up for, say, a professional class, right? I would say you actually browse your YouTube. There are a lot of tons and tons of tutorial on YouTube for you to start as a beginner, and that will also open up your mind and broaden your IQ to what exactly you want to learn. Yes, I would say the road is not smooth from the beginning. You have a whole lot of say imposter syndrome. How will you get to this stage? Don't worry, just start from somewhere first. There are beginner videos on YouTube. I've seen a couple of it that I've recommended to people to start with, because if you pay somebody, or you go to a design school and you pay, like, say, a 200, 300K, to say you want to start learning whatever it is, you will still get to learn the same thing free of charge. All you just need to just buy is data on YouTube, and you would might even learn more on YouTube, because once the class is over in your class, that is all. But for YouTube, you can always go back to it and then relearn. But what I would say is, first you need a proper design system, right? You need a proper design tool. If you can start off with a very good Windows system, but if you can afford a very good Mac, you can start with it. I would say that start from how to design a logo, how to work on colors, and how to put typography together. Now, these three things would shaping your mind into bigger form of designs. And why I'm telling you this is because when I started off with, learning how to use the tools without learning the fundamental aspect of design. But when I keep on going into design, I started seeing that, I was getting quite a number of rejection in terms of jobs that I wish to have, clients that I wish to work with. I took like almost about, say, 2, 3 steps back to really find my root and know what, this fundamental style or ways of designing is. And that has shaping the way I think, the way I design, and the way I do my things in the recent time. Does that answer your question, Faith?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Toby asked the question in the chat box. He said, what did you use to make the presentation? Okay, what did you use to design the presentation, probably?
Okay. I use Google Slide to design the presentation.
Okay. Toby, can you hear that? I don't know if you still have any more questions.
It's just the presentation style has nothing to do with any design software. It's done start to finish on Google Slide.
Okay, all right. And then Sharon asked the question earlier. She said in the page about shapes, when you were talking about shapes,
Okay, I can quickly go back.
yes, she said, why are they defined with just recognizable boundaries? Why not all boundaries? In the page about shapes, why are they defined with just recognizable boundaries? Why not all boundaries? Sharon, do you want to explain this?
So why they define with recognizable boundaries is because you want to draw a box or a rectangle, you want to draw a triangle, and you want to put this on your artboard, right? Everything should have some little bit of say spacing, and on how they interact with each other. Case in place is this third, if you count from the left, the third oval shapes that actually goes into each other. What we used to call this back in the days when I was in school. So we said your shapes had to go hand in hand, or had to go into each other. We say it has to interwoven into each other. And there are also some aspects to that. So, right, like very 1 minute, please. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, if you're a very good pattern designer, you can begin to sell your design to what do you call it? This fabric prints. Yeah. So it has to be recognized. Your boundaries has to be really, really defined. So if it's not really, really defined, there might be a little bit of it might not be very symmetrical, if that's the word.
Thank you so much. Kate Woods. She raised her hands. Do you want to speak now?
Hey, I want to ask a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes, we
you.
can. Thank you.
I just want to know if this designer does it have any differences if you're using a Windows like Windows 10, 7, and 8? Does it have any difference with any of those windows in making a design?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Please come again.
And I want to know if is there any difference of a design being made with a Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Windows 8?
Is that any different with the design made with the Windows 7, Windows 5, Windows 7, or Windows what?
Windows 8.
Okay. So what I used to say is this, and I actually picked this quote from a movie I've watched in the past. It is not about the car, it's just about the person behind the wheel, right? It's not about the system, it's about the designer. If you give me a Okay, let me give you a simple analogy of this. So I started designing when Photoshop was Photoshop 5, right? Now I'm really advanced in terms of the type of Photoshop that I use at the moment. But if you give me a Photoshop 5 to design, I'll still make a very good creative out of it. I can say that. So it's not about the Windows or the type of system or the software that you use. As a designer, as a creative person, all you need to know is or to master is your fundamental um, um, part of creative design. And once you know all of those, you've mastered all those elements, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Kate has his hands up again. Do you still have
Okay,
anything
great.
to say?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Charles, you have your hands raised up. Please, you can
Okay.
ask your.
Good evening. I would like
Good
to
evening,
thank
Charles.
the facilitator, an amazing class and session. The question I want to ask is this: one thing I understand about brand, like what I was told, is they have a particular color and a particular font they always use to create their designs on social media. And if the question goes like this, can a designer use a separate font from the brand font to do probably a social media story or a flyer that will be printed and given out? Is it possible to do such for a brand?
So it's actually broken down into two different stages. Now, first is this: every brand has their own cultural architecture and style guide. Comes in between the color, the shapes, the logo, the font, which is typography, the patterns and whatsoever they have built to over time to move the brand forward. Now, this means a lot to them, right? Now, this in place if you're going to create a story version of a design or of say a campaign on Instagram, say Instagram story, and you're not creating it from any design platform. You're doing it straight and direct on Instagram story. it should, of course, the client understand that, you know, their font is not presently available on Instagram. It's not available. So what you can do to in the place of that is having to use some other elements that is readily available to that Instagram stories would approve or would that was applicable on Instagram story, like say the colors, maybe the logo in PNG, you know, maybe the brand that created some stickers on say Instagram, which you can also use, and all of those things. It doesn't matter if it's on Instagram story, because that is what Instagram is all about anyways. But if you are creating a feed design and you need to use any design tool, maybe Photoshop, an Illustrator, maybe an InDesign, you know, this platform allows you to use the brand's essence. It allows you to use the brand guide, allows you to use the brand logo, the brand font, the way it's supposed to be used. Please use it. You don't want to find yourself in trouble. And for print, it also applies to it. But platforms like Instagram Story, you know, that doesn't have the font, you can be excused. Platforms like say Canva, that doesn't have the brand font, also can be excused, because of course you also need to get the client buying into it, because those are the platforms they're going to be using to create most of these things. Aside that, I don't think you should go out of the client's brand guide at any given time.
All right. Thank